Welcome to the deep dive. This is where we get into the source material you send us, really pull it apart, and give you the context you need.
Mm.
Today, we're diving into, well, a really sweeping American story. It kicks off in this small Ohio town, Bonomy, right in the middle of World War II, and basically tracks how secrets fester over, 3 decades?
Yeah, exactly. And our source material is Patrick Ryan's novel, Buckeye. It's complex, really deeply human.
Right.
And it's not just about the town Bonomy itself. It's more a detailed look at identity, at trauma, and the massive cost of keeping quiet.
That's true.
So our mission today really is to chart the paths of the three main characters, Cal Jenkins, who's sort of the outsider kid,
Yeah.
Margaret Salt, who's always searching for something more, and Becky Hanover, the sensitive. Their lives get all tangled up.
And we're looking at how these huge external forces, war, social pressures, how they shape their innermost choices.
That's it. And why this deep dive matters for you, the listener, is really understanding the sheer weight people carry. Beneath what looks like a perfectly normal life.
Yeah.
It's a study in, I guess, human complexity. How even seemingly ordinary people can hold these, radical secrets.
It shows how things like WWII, Vietnam, even just rigid expectations back then can trap people in these kinds of identity cages.
Cages is a good word for it.
And then how the fallout from those compromises just gets passed down, sometimes tragically, to the next generation. We're really digging into why the author built this world with such meticulous psychological detail.
Yeah, let's get into it.
Okay, so let's start right there in Bonomy, Ohio. The town itself feels like a character, doesn't it?
Oh, definitely.
Before the war, you said population over 6,000 and had its own police, fire department, even a vocational college. But reading the descriptions, it's not exactly cozy Mayberry, is it?
No, not at all. It's really defined by industry and, the passing of time.
Yeah.
You feel that conflict right away. Well, the sources lay out this industrial landscape pretty clearly. You've got the thriving, modern places like J&J Concrete, Tuck & Sons Aluminum, huge operation there.
Right, the economic engines.
Exactly. The future,
Yeah.
But the author deliberately places them right next to the relics, the dying businesses, like Ingleton's Fizzy Pops, Dilko's Vegan supplements.
Ah, okay. So the layout itself shows that tension.
Yeah, it's like the town's wrestling with its quiet farming past versus this, explosive wartime growth it needs.
And the visual details the author uses are just striking, that rusted green elevator.
Yeah, looming at the east end of Main Street. Still got that faint Purina checkerboard logo.
Connects it way back, doesn't it?
It does. But the defining visual, maybe the town's whole psychological mood ring, is that massive Tuck & Sons tulip sign.
The pink neon one, 20 feet tall.
That's the one, flat as a stencil, mounted 100 feet up. You could see it from miles. A real symbol of local pride, American industry, all that.
Okay, but the key detail is it went dark, right?
It went dark. April 1942. Tuck & Sons even took out a full-page ad in the Hancock Gazette to announce it.
Wow. And that's not just about saving power during the war, is it? That feels bigger.
Oh, much bigger. It's a psychological hit. The light going out makes the town's anxiety visible.
Right. It's the war threat made real. The idea that, the enemy could actually reach Ohio and hit a place like Tuck & Sons Aluminum.
Precisely. The war wasn't just happening overseas. It was happening right there, in the dark. It was in the home front safety meetings where they're talking about smashing Japanese products. And it was in the Gazette every week listing the local boys who died. The fear was just everywhere.
And it's that atmosphere, that kind of pervasive war fever, that immediately sets up our first character, Cal Jenkins. But mainly through his exclusion from it all.
Yeah, Cal Jenkins. He got left behind. January 42, the Army doctor classifies him 4F.
And we should probably explain 4F. That meant you were disqualified for service, right? Physical, mental.
Or moral defect, yeah. For Cal, it was physical. A deformity, one leg was shorter, so he couldn't stand up perfectly straight.
And the doctor just tells him, try the Citizens Defense Corps, which sounds like a polite brush-off, basically.
Totally. It's a dismissal. And you have to think what that kind of exclusion does to a guy in that hyper-masculine wartime town.
Especially given his background, right? His dad.
Exactly. His mom died when he was 11. He's raised by his father, Everett, who's this bitter World War I vet. Lost most of his hearing from mortar blasts.
And Everett's cynical about this war.
Deeply cynical. Blames the White House for cutting off Japan's oil. And he actually told Cal his short leg meant he'd never be in a big one.
Oof, that's loaded. It sounds protective, kind of, but also...
Utterly crippling, yeah. It's like saying you won't die, but also you're fundamentally incapable of proving your manhood. It fuels this profound inherited shame in Cal.
So Cal's childhood home sounds chaotic, reflecting Everett's bitterness. The sources mention, like, storm front of water stains on the ceiling, junk piled everywhere.
Yeah. But by the time we meet him as an adult, he's trying to impose order on his life. He married Becky Hanover.
Right, and he's working for her father, Roman, at Hanover Hardware.
Exactly. It's his attempt to find structure, control. He's on salary and commission, thinks he's finally achieved, real adulthood.
And the overstock basement at the hardware store becomes his little hideaway.
His sanctuary, yeah. Pint-sized desk, cot.
Yeah.
It's his contained, ordered space away from his father's chaos. But the dynamic with Roman, his father-in-law, it's still tense.
How so?
Roman's always scrutinizing Cal's finances, subtly putting him down, calls him a bum for just getting by fine.
So there's this constant pressure cooker simmering under the surface for Cal.
Absolutely. Which makes him incredibly vulnerable when Margaret Salt walks in.
And Margaret, she's the spark, isn't she? She arrives at this really pivotal moment, maybe when Truman's announcing the bomb, and she just looks different.
Totally different. The author nails her outfit.
Yeah.
Mint green dress, pillbox hat, white gloves, coral lipstick. Cal immediately clocks her as having money. Sophistication.
Everything his basement life isn't.
Right. And she doesn't just ask about the Zenith radio she wants. She ignores the handwritten "Do Not Enter" sign on the basement door.
Uh-huh. Forces him to follow her down there.
That refusal to respect boundaries, that's key to her character, isn't it? That restlessness.
Yeah. And then the kiss. It's immediate. Intense.
Right there between the shelves. It completely short-circuits the formal handshake they try moments later. It's just pure, uncontrolled instinct.
They only stop when Truman finishes speaking on the radio.
For Cal, you can imagine this moment is just radical. It's validation, a brief escape from that 4F cage he's been living in.
But the seed of the big secret, the one that drives the whole novel, it gets planted right after.
Yeah. When Margaret looks around his little basement setup, the cot, the desk, the brown bag lunch, that swashbuckling library book.
And she asks him,
does a child live down here? With this, keen curiosity.
That's such a brilliant question, because even before anything really happens, it forces Cal to confront his reality. The simple, structured family life he has built with Becky.
It immediately brings up his responsibility, doesn't it? A responsibility he's clearly about to betray. All because this woman represents an escape he's, desperate for.
Okay, so if Cal is defined by being excluded, Margaret's story is the opposite almost. It's this lifelong, desperate search for identity, for freedom. And it starts with her having basically no roots at all.
None. She was left anonymously at the Open Arms Orphanage in Doyle, Ohio, 1918. The only kindness, really, was from Lydia Virts, the administrator.
Who nicknamed her Firefly, right?
Yeah. And crucially, her mother left a note. Lydia insisted it was kind and loving. But Margaret, even as a kid, she knew. Leaving your baby in a basket doesn't really match that description.
That disconnect, the story versus the reality, that sounds like a pattern for her.
It becomes the pattern. She spent her childhood trying to kind of invent a reality for herself. And the sources show she used movies as her template.
Yeah. She used her mad money from Lydia to go to the pictures, loved the dance movies like Footlight Parade, Flying Down to Rio.
But they weren't just fun for her. They were like research. She'd meticulously analyze the women in crime dramas.
Oh, interesting. How so?
She saw two types. The classy ones, bank tellers, secretaries, women who achieved stability, and then the disheveled-looking ones who, dated cop killers.
And she wanted to be the classy one.
Desperately. That was her goal. She dreamed of embodying that type, the sophisticated, upwardly mobile woman, and her destination was always Columbus.
So when she finally gets to Columbus in 1936, she feels like she's made it, marching confidently.
Yeah, she thinks she has. She has these brief relationships, Mr. Higgs, the museum docent, this rabbit-like English teacher who wanted to hike across Tibet.
Clearly not settling down material.
Not for her, no. But then there was Bernard, stable, reliable. She had her first orgasm with him.
Even though he stuttered God during sex, the book says.
Right. So Bernard represented stability, maybe affection even, but definitely not the glamorous future she'd imagined for herself.
And that future seemed to arrive with Felix Salt, handsome, an executive at Tuck & Sons.
Looked like the perfect fit. She married him in January 37, and she saw it very pragmatically, like a deal. She trusted him, believed she could grow into love.
Okay, so this is where her careful planning hits a snag, right? She checked all the boxes for the classy woman, but the reality of being married to Felix, especially in Bonomy, it was isolating.
Deeply isolating. Their sex life was sparse, averaging once a month. the source says. And that detail about her having to coach him was bringing, you can do it, Annie.
Yeah, that's painful. Embarrassing for him, you imagine, and just lonely for her.
Totally. A complete lack of intimacy. And then trying to fit in with the local women in Bonomy after they moved there for Felix's promotion in 39. That was a bust, too.
The war wives at the Swan's Nest tea room.
Yeah. She went for tea, tried to connect, but found their talk about rationing and, extension recipes just boring.
So she feels completely stranded.
Yeah, she's this sort of open question mark, desperate for definition, and she feels trapped. Which brings us, interestingly, to Cal's wife, Becky, who handles her isolation very differently.
Right. Becky doesn't look outward for glamour. She turns inward through her gift.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Becky Hanover is defined by this connection to the spiritual world, something she embraced really early on.
Her status as a sensitive got cemented by those 2 childhood incidents, didn't it?
Yeah, pretty powerful ones. First, hearing the voice of the missing Mr. Shefflin in her head. He was later found dead in the Lorry River.
Okay, creepy.
And then, maybe even more mythic, when she had the mumps. This Seneca tribeswoman supposedly appeared by her bed, healed her with crushed herbs, and then just vanished.
Wow, so these weren't just like fleeting feelings. They kicked off a lifelong practice for her.
Absolutely. Communicating with the dead. It started pretty simply, using a crystal ball she ordered from the back of Haunted Tales magazine with her friend Janice.
And Cal thought this was
a little silly. While he's downstairs listening to the radio, dealing with the real world.
That contrast is telling, isn't it? His serious hardware work versus her silly seances, there's a real gender divide there, a sign of their disconnect.
Oh, definitely. But what's really fascinating about Becky is how she thinks about power and responsibility. She's not just passively receiving messages.
She questions it.
Intensely. She scrutinizes where her ability comes from God, somewhere else. And she gets really frustrated with the vague answers, like the worthless blanket explanation of mysterious ways.
So she's actively grappling with the ethics of it all.
Yes. She realizes she could easily lie. Like, to that young woman looking for her missing brother, she could just make something up to give comfort. Or she could just become a charlatan, do it for money.
That she chooses not to.
Right. That realization turns her ability from, like, a quirky hobby into this serious moral responsibility. She calls it a province not to be taken lightly. She has agency in this invisible world.
Which is interesting because Cal feels so trapped by the visible world, by his 4F status.
Exactly. And despite these very different inner lives, their marriage, Cal and Becky's, it was stable on the surface. Becky described it as fine.
And they had that famous rule, never go to sleep angry, never let a dispute go unresolved.
Yeah. Which meant they managed to care around the things that angered them. That's the phrase the author uses.
Carrying around the things. That says a lot. It's like prioritizing peace over actually digging into the conflict.
Precisely. And that's why Cal's affair, this secret he keeps for a decade, is such a profound betrayal later on. It shatters that foundation. It proves there are some things you can't just care around. It was built on deception.
So the war, it excluded Cal, it isolated Margaret, but for Felix, it seems like it just broke him. And that breakage sets the stage for everything that follows.
Yeah, Felix, the handsome executive, he served as an officer of the deck on a cargo ship, the Teague, in the Pacific. And his war wasn't heroism and glory. It was just relentless tedium, punctuated by extreme danger.
Like what?
30-hour shifts sometimes. Constantly loading and unloading explosives. The noise, the sources say, the noise never faded. He started smoking Winston's, a brand he apparently hated before the war.
That's a small detail, but it's powerful, isn't it? He's suppressing his old self just to cope.
Exactly. Fundamentally changing his preferences. Margaret even noticed it in his letters home. She said she lost a solid grasp of him, that they were written in dry company jargon.
So the Felix who came back was diminished?
Physically and psychologically.
Yeah.
2 sizes down in his shirts. A year after returning, the book notes, suggests severe trauma.
And the core of that trauma was the sinking of the Teague.
Yeah. Torpedoed. He survived. Scrambled for one of those Cape Hawk life vests. Got hauled out of the water by another sailor named Durst. But his hesitation, before he climbed onto the rescue boat, he was desperately scanning the wreckage.
Looking for someone.
Looking for Augie. Augie, who he'd nicknamed Jamoke, after a dog on the island where they'd met.
And Augie was
the core of Felix's secret life. A really intense physical relationship they formed during R&R on some Pacific island. Augie didn't make it when the Teague went down.
Oh, wow. So Felix's grief wasn't just survivor's guilt. It was for a specific hidden loss.
Devastating, unmanageable loss. It was so bad he ended up hospitalized. He admitted to the doctors he contemplated suicide. When they asked if he wished he'd gone down with the ship, he just said, "I said yes."
And that admission, that triggered the fear of the NP stamp, right? Neuropsychiatric.
Terrifying prospect back then. An NP discharge, career suicide, forget veterans benefits, it would destroy his reputation in Bonhomie, could even lead to being locked up.
So the pressure was immense to just get over it.
Absolutely. The doctors, focused on getting men back into the fight or back home quickly, they pushed the narrative of gratitude. You survived, feel grateful.
But Felix knew better.
He knew the truth.
Yeah.
He felt the best parts of Felix had been knocked out in the blast, along with Augie. He came home a ghost, sexually distant, consumed by the silent, secret grief.
And that void, that's what Margaret was dealing with. She tried to initiate things when he got back.
Yeah, she orchestrated the one successful sexual encounter they had after his return. The source notes she deliberately didn't use her diaphragm, knowing that pausing might derail the whole delicate operation.
Wow. So it was this act of, like, desperate procreation.
Pretty much. And that encounter led directly to Tom's conception, which happened just before Margaret's final single encounter with Cal.
Okay, so she realizes Tom is Cal's child, and she feels trapped again.
Worse than before. She felt stupid, the book says, for marrying Felix with no indication that he was attracted to her. Her carefully constructed deal had failed. And then came motherhood.
Which was a crisis for her, rooted in her own abandonment issues, probably.
Definitely seems that way. She found it intolerable. Described the baby feeling like snakes in her stomach. Breastfeeding was immediately painful. Her life just became this cycle of sterilizing bottles and chores.
Reminding her of the orphanage.
Exactly. The drudgery at open arms. She even wondered if she and Felix had no business raising a child.
This internal panic, it creates the opening for the next big fracture, doesn't it? The arrival of Casey LaGrange.
Ah, yes. The scholar of psychic minds, interested in Becky's gift.
For Becky, this must have felt like validation after years of Cal thinking it was silly.
Totally. She felt less isolated. She found a colleague, someone who took her seriously, wanted to include her in his research, his compendium.
But Cal saw LaGrange as a threat.
Big time. A suit. A slick type.
Big time.
You can hear Cal's insecurity screaming there, right? He was excluded from the serious world of war, and now here's this outsider validating his wife's unserious spiritual life. Cal needs control, and he can't control LaGrange.
So he and Roman step in?
Oh, yeah. They drive down to the station. Cal confronts LaGrange, actually threatens him with a hammer.
Seriously, a hammer?
Yep. Buy him a one-way ticket to Toledo. Forbid him from contacting Becky ever again, not even by psychic vibration.
Wow, that's a massive overreach, however protective they thought they were being.
Devastating for Becky. She felt they'd pulled the rug out from under her, treated her like a kid. She confronts Cal, calls him insecure, says his bitterness about being 4F ruined his judgment.
That's a deep marital wound, much deeper than anything they'd just carried around before.
Absolutely. And all this tension, Felix's trauma, Margaret's restlessness, Becky's anger, it all just builds until Margaret decides she has to leave.
And the scene where she confesses the affair to Felix, his reaction is stunning.
It really is.
Yeah?
He doesn't explode. He's almost understanding.
Is it real understanding, though, or is it just detachment? Like, he's so lost in his own grief for Augie, his own identity issues, that her affair barely registers.
Right. I think it's both. That's the tragedy of it. He says, I wondered actually if you had. And then he blames himself. I wasn't providing along those lines.
He's protecting his own secret by showing understanding for hers.
Exactly. He knows the agony of hidden desire, hidden grief. So he grants her discretion. And crucially, he chooses to keep Tom's paternity a secret, believing he's protecting the boy.
So Margaret only tells Cal the truth about Tom right as she's leaving Bonomy for good.
Yeah. Packs her 2 suitcases, takes half the emergency cash from the Band-Aid tin. Symbolic, right? Their shared security fund.
And she puts that painting in the car.
Leon Delisle painting. Her connection back to Columbus, to art, to the aspirational self she wanted to be. That's the part of her life she's trying to save.
Not the life she built in Bonomy.
Nope. And then the final brutal moment. She's closing the trunk, and Tom rolls up on his bicycle, sees the luggage. His face just crumples in confusion.
And she just drives away. No explanation.
None. Mirroring exactly how her own mother abandoned her.
Wow. The cycle just repeats. Margaret spends her life wanting an explanation and then inflicts the exact same unexplained wound on her own son. Shocking.
Yeah. And the immediate fallout of all these secrets, it just warps the next generation. Specifically Skip, who's Cal and Becky's son, and Tom, who's technically Cal and Margaret's son, but raised by Felix.
But they're best friends, Skip and Tom.
Yeah.
Inseparable.
Incredibly close. The book gives us these great details exploring the abandoned mill smokestack together. That's where Skip, nicknames Tom Buckeye,
Why Buckeye?
found Buckeye nuts stuffed in Tom's socks during the climb. Just a kid thing, but it sticks. They have this really tight bond.
But after Margaret leaves, Tom's childhood gets rough because he doesn't have a story that makes sense.
Right, he becomes this tightly wound spring of a kid, prone to outbursts at school, grades slipping. Felix maintains the lie about his dad, and Margaret left without a word, so Tom starts making stuff up.
To explain her absence.
Yeah. He tells the neighborhood kids these dramatic stories. His mom died in a plane crash or a tunnel collapse or even a bank robbery.
Wow. Hollywood deaths. Just like Margaret's obsession with movies.
Exactly. But Felix, trying to be responsible in his own way, makes Tom face the truth. Or the truth. He forces Tom to admit his mother was alive and not here by choice. But crucially, he still keeps the paternity secret.
So it's still a half-truth, designed to protect Felix's secret as much as Tom.
Pretty much. And then, just as things maybe settle into this fragile, secret-laden peace, Vietnam happens.
And Skip enlists. Cal described him as slow to take root, didn't he?
Yeah. But he joins the Marines at 22, finds a sense of conviction after basic training, the book says.
He serves in Vietnam.
Yeah.
And his letters home. They capture that disconnect, right, between the official story and the reality on the ground.
Perfectly. They're sparse, practical, food's rotten, guys are messed up one way or another, and the most devastating line, just, nobody seems to know why we're here.
He writes to Tom about getting a Silver Star, but even then...
He admits the war makes no fucking sense. Just lays bare the futility of it all.
And then the Tet Offensive, 1968.
Skip is killed. Blown to bits, is the phrase Tom remembers years later. Just brutal.
And that loss just devastates Cal and Becky.
Oh, completely. Drives them into this deep, sustained grief. Crying becomes like breathing for them. They're just consumed by worry, feeling they have no choice but to worry.
They're living in deference to the loss.
Exactly. The death of their legitimate son, the one who carried the Hanover name. It creates this shared burden that isolates them, but also, ironically, lays the groundwork for their eventual reconciliation years later.
And the ultimate irony is, their surviving son, Tom, is the product of the secret they both helped keep.
Precisely. Years go by. It's 1975. Felix gets diagnosed with terminal cancer.
And he decides it's time. He has to tell Tom the truth before he dies.
Yeah. Cal is nervous about it, but he supports Felix's decision. Maybe feels a bit relieved, even. He admits he never really had a say in the matter to begin with, after Margaret bolted.
So Felix tells Tom, where does it happen?
On a big rock down by Lake Meyer. Just lays it out. Cal Jenkins is your biological father.
Oh, man. And Tom's reaction?
He confronts Cal and Becky later in their living room, the one with the grandfather clock ticking. The book describes it as a cyclone of unwelcome information hitting him.
His whole world just collapses. His identity, his parents, even his bond with Skip.
Suddenly feels like a lie. He's devastated. But interestingly, it's not the sex, the affair itself, that hits him hardest. It's the deception.
He blames the adults for prioritizing their own comfort.
Yeah. He accuses them of lying through their teeth every single day of their lives just to make their own lives a little smoother.
Lying through their teeth. That feels like the core message of the whole novel, doesn't it? About trust between generations.
Absolutely. And the timing is just cruel for Tom. He feels like he lost Skip twice, once to the war, and now realizing their brotherhood was built on a lie only the adults knew.
So this betrayal sends him looking for the other liar, Margaret.
Immediately. Drives straight to Columbus, finds her working at the Lazarus department store, which he remembers as this grand city within a city, and she's selling shoes.
The classy woman dream reduced to retail.
Pretty much. He watches her from a distance, sees her aging the crow's feet, the tired skin, the dyed hair. He notices how she cycles through expressions for customers, pleasant, amused, interested.
But when she's alone,
her face just settles into this single, disconsolate look. Empty. He realizes she's not okay. That the glamorous mystery mom is just a tired woman relying on the flat one, her neutral, unhappy face.
does he confront her then?
Not right away. She comes back to Bonhomie briefly for Felix's funeral in August 75. That's when Tom forces the confrontation outside the house. He's desperate for the why. Why did she leave him?
And does she give it to him?
No. That's the tragedy. She fails him completely. It just offers this vague, generic apology. I am sorry, Tom, for everything.
For everything, which means nothing, really.
Exactly. Tom's left totally confused. He didn't want a blanket apology. He wanted the reason, the context, the why behind her walking out on him all those years ago.
He leaves feeling unheard.
Completely. Though there's this fleeting moment where he rushes forward, hugs her, whispers something into her blouse. The book says it might have been, "I forgive you," or maybe, "I love you."
And the author leaves it ambiguous.
Deliberately ambiguous. Margaret never knows if she was forgiven. Tom never gets his explanation. The lack of closure just cements that trauma, passing it down.
But despite all this loss, the older generation, they do find a way to keep going, don't they? Cal and Becky eventually reconcile.
They do. After years apart following Skip's death, Roman's death actually plays a part, and that his widow, Ida, moves away but gives Becky this piece of advice.
What was it?
Ida says, "The whole reason you build a bridge together is so the water can run under it."
Wow. That's powerful. Don't try to dam up the past. Just let the grief and the secrets flow underneath while the structure holds.
Exactly. And it works for them. They're back together by the fall of '75. Becky also gives up her seances after Skip dies.
Why?
She starts feeling protective of the dead. She comes to believe all those years of contacting spirits were actually training her to survive losing Skip and to be ready, calmly ready, if he ever wanted to reach out to her.
So she moves from actively seeking contact to just patient waiting, finds peace in a different kind of silence.
Yeah, it's a profound shift for her. And Felix, too, finds a kind of peace before he dies in '75.
How so?
He develops this close relationship with Bishop, a coworker at the furniture plant where he ended up working. Bishop just saw him, understood his need for a bigger pot, meaning a deeper connection, a real home life that he couldn't find with Margaret.
It's like an acceptance of his true self right at the end.
Yeah, a quiet acknowledgement. And then there's Tom, the last son standing.
By 1976, he's got the serious sideburns, the saddlebag, and his radio show, The Salt Mine.
Right, and the show's focus tells you everything. Unsung heroes and underdogs, especially vets struggling to adjust back home.
It's a direct response to everything he went through with Felix, with Skip, with the lies.
Absolutely. Turning his inherited trauma into something purposeful. But the final legacy, the final twist from that generation's secrets and wars, it comes through Tom and his girlfriend, Kathy Pascal.
Her cousin also died in Tet, right?
Yeah. And they make a decision together. They choose not to have children. Because, they say, the world is too crowded with children and unstable.
Wow. That's a conscious break in the cycle. A decision born directly out of the chaos and betrayal they witnessed.
It is. Though the book notes Cal and Becky are surprised, but still kind of hopeful they might get a grandchild someday. The hope persists, even after everything.
Looking back at this whole saga, one of the most, poignant themes feels like it's about unread letters, unanswered questions, like that letter Margaret wrote to her future self, the one she gave Cal way back when they first met.
Yeah, where she asked, basically, will our older selves be anything like our younger selves thought we would be?
That question just hangs over the whole story, doesn't it?
It really does. Cal thinks about it years later, regrets not writing a letter to his younger self, realizes all he could advise on now is like blood thinners.
It's tragic. Their adult selves weren't defined by those youthful aspirations, but by compromise, by secrets, by things they had to hide.
And the author keeps circling back to that tension, right? Between the evasions you need to survive, like Felix hiding his trauma to avoid the NP stamp, or Margaret fleeing a marriage she couldn't bear, versus the lies that just corrode everything.
Because Tom's deep resentment, it wasn't about the affair itself, it was about the lie.
That's the absolute core of it. The adults decided to make life a little smoother for themselves, as Tom put it. They kept the secret. But doing that created this foundation of lies that was so fragile. When the truth finally came out, it just shattered the next generation's reality.
Real healing, it seems, for Cal, for Becky, maybe even for Tom. It only starts once those secrets are out in the open, however painful that is.
Yeah. The exposure is devastating, but necessary.
Okay, before we wrap up this deep dive, maybe just a little context on the author, Patrick Ryan. The novel, Buckeye, it's copyrighted 2025.
Right. And in his acknowledgments, Ryan gives thanks pretty widely. He dedicates the book to the Van Devenders. He specifically thanks his agent, Nicole Aragi, for seeing the novel's potential early on.
And his editor,
Robin Desser. He praises her wisdom and generosity, saying she heard the specific tone he was aiming for and kept him on track through multiple drafts. So you get the sense the editor was really key in shaping this complex narrative.
That relationship is often crucial, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. He also thanks the McDowell Foundation, which gives artists residencies, basically, quiet time and space to work. Sounds like that was important for tackling a historical novel this dense. Hashtag tag outro.
Well, this has been quite a journey, a really profound deep dive into just how much people can hide. The sheer amount of trauma simmering beneath the surface of a seemingly quiet town like Bonomy is just staggering.
It really is.
And you see how those big external conflicts, World War II, Vietnam, they weren't just headlines. They became these deeply internalized psychological wars for characters like Cal, Felix, and Margaret.
Yeah, and we saw how they all tried, initially at least, to survive by controlling their stories, did they?
Yeah.
Cal by trying to master the hardware store, find order there. Felix by suppressing his grief for Augie, locking it away. Becky by finding dignity and meaning in her gift.
But the novel seems to argue pretty strongly that building your identity on secrets, it just doesn't last. It decays. And it ends up shattering the foundation for the kids you were trying to protect in the first place.
That's the inescapable truth the source material leaves us with. The healing only really began, however messily, when the secrets finally came out, even though exposing them was devastating for Tom.
Which brings us to our final provocative thought for you, the listener, to chew on. Margaret, when she was a kid, she wondered if she should have waited for an explanation from her own mother to find freedom. Tom, her son, ultimately got no real explanation from her, just that vague, I'm sorry for everything. So the question is, when you've faced deep, painful betrayal or abandonment, when does trying to understand the why chasing that elusive explanation become less important than simply accepting that it happened and then choosing to define your own life moving forward, regardless of the past's unanswered questions? That feels like the challenge that ultimately defines Tom Salt, the Buckeye.